right, good morning, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to start in a seat, but we're going to bring the bottoms of the feet together. Let the knees open up a little bit wider. So I like to sit on a block for this. I feel like I can just sit up a little bit taller, get a little bit more stretch through those inner thighs. Completely up to you, though. Even a little bit of elevation, if you have like a really thick blanket, that kind of helps too. So just take a moment, go ahead and grab that really quick. We're just going to start with a few breaths, so you have a little bit of time. But if you're ready to go, just go ahead and close down those eyes. You can bring those hands to the knees or maybe grab onto those ankles. And just notice if you're starting to roll forward a little bit, think about leaning back a little bit. So not that we're actually leaning back, but we want our spine to just be straight up and down. And you can adjust those feet a little bit, just finding a comfortable position that we can breathe here for a few minutes, few moments. So just take that really big breath in through the nose. Just feeling that breath as it moves up the spine, really lengthening out all the way up through the top of the head. And exhaling that breath out, just nice and slow. Again, inhaling that really big breath in. And exhale it out. And just continuing that breath on your own. Bringing yourself to this space as you focus on that breath. Just letting all the other thoughts just begin to melt away. Just bringing yourself right here to this moment. You're not worrying about what happened right before this or yesterday, not what's about to happen. Just be right here in this space. Inhale, reach those arms up overhead. And on that exhale, we're going to find that just a gentle twist over to that right side. So if you can, bring that left hand across that knee. The ankle might be a little bit more accessible, but sit up again as tall as you can. And then finding a little deeper twist. So looking over that shoulder too. So we're getting that stretch all along that spine. And we'll bring it back to center. You can reach those arms up to really lengthen through that spine. And then we'll twist it over to that other side again. Inhaling up nice and tall. Exhaling a little deeper into that twist. And then we'll bring it back to center. You want to grab on to those ankles and then just start to lean it forward. So big thing here, try and keep that back nice and flat. So lifting through that chest just slightly as we lean it forward. So you may not be able to go very far. That's all right. We want to work towards just feeling that stretch through the inner thighs, keeping that low back nice and straight. We'll hold it a few more breaths. Maybe you can soften a little bit deeper into it. And then slowly come back up. Go ahead and come to those hands and knees. Excuse me. Then stacking those hands right underneath the shoulders, knees are right underneath those hips. You really spread those fingers out, pressing into those palms, into those fingertips. On that inhale, drop the belly, lift the chest, lift the tailbone as we look up. And exhale, we'll round that spine. Press the shoulder blades away from each other. Draw that belly in. Find as much rounding through that spine as you can. Okay, so think about really scooping that tailbone down, rounding through that low back, the mid back, upper back, tucking that chin. And then inhale, drop the belly, lift the chest, lift the tailbone as we look up. And exhale, round. Good. One more round through these cat-cows. Inhale, drop the belly, lift the chest, lift the tailbone. Exhale, round. And now we're gonna bring it to that neutral spine. Okay, keep those hips right above the knees. So we're gonna walk those hands forward. You really press into those palms. Again, grip with those fingertips. Pull those hands towards each other as we start to soften that forehead down. So maybe it touches the ground. Maybe those shoulders are feeling a little bit tight this morning and you just hover that head. And if you're feeling good, you want to lower that chin down towards the mat, that's an option too. Okay, now we'll rise back up. Just go ahead and slide those hands back. We're going to come up to the high kneeling. Good rib cage. Let's adjust this a little bit. Good, so reaching those arms up, we're going to find a slight bend over to that right side. Inhale it back up. Exhale it to the other side. Inhale, reach it back up. And exhale, we're going to slide those hands down. Okay, so this time, another option here is to come up onto those fingertips. Okay, now we're going to kind of flow through this puppy pose a little bit. So we're going to soften that head down as much as we can. Okay, then think of that cat spine. So then we're going to draw that belly up and in, kind of rounding through that upper back. Good, then soften that chest down. Good, then round that spine. So we bring it back up. Good, soften it down. Good, rounding that spine. Good, soften down. Good, and round. And then we'll plant, or not plant, just walk those hands back. Again, rise up. We'll find those side bends over to that right side. Inhale it back up. Over to that left side. Inhale, reach it back up. Then we'll slide those hands down. Again, on those fingertips, if that was a little bit too much for you, just lower those hands down. When you're on your fingertips, you just get a little bit more range of motion, but if it was too much range of motion, just go ahead and lower those hands, those palms back down. So again, we're gonna soften that forehead down. Good, rounding through that upper back, pulling that belly up and in. Good, soften it down. Round. Good, softening as we look forward. Good, rounding that spine. That last time, lower that chest down. Round it as we bring it back up. Good, slide those hands back, reaching those arms up. Side bend over to the right. Inhale it up. Over to the left. Good, inhale, reach it back up. Now this time, draw those elbows down. Inhale, send the arms up. Drop down. Reach it back up. Good, last time, draw those elbows down. Pause it here. And we'll start to extend those arms, interlacing those fingers behind the back. So maybe you just barely grab onto those hands and we work on just pulling those shoulder blades back. Okay, that's going to be that first step. Okay, next would be to draw those knuckles down towards the ground. Okay, and then maybe you start to bring those hands away from the hips. Now, when we bring the hands back, I don't want the shoulders to roll forward like this. Okay, keep that chest nice and open, draw down, and then bring the hands back. Keeping that core nice and tight. We want to feel that nice opening through this front part of the body. One more breath. And then we'll release those hands down. Just go ahead and sit those hips back into that child's pose, maybe bringing those knees a little bit wider, and maybe even bringing those knees all the way out to the mat. So again, staying along those lines of stretching out through those inner thighs. Just resting that head down. And then make your way back onto those hands and knees. Let's go ahead and set those feet back to our plank. Let's go 3 breaths here in plank. So really tight through that core, pulling that chest forward without dropping those hips. Keep them lifted. Okay, squeezing those legs together. Get really strong. We'll go for 3, 2, and 1. Hips up to the sky. That first down dog. Really take your time here, pedaling those feet out. So bend one knee, press that other heel down towards the mat. Just any movement that you need kind of loosens up those calves, the ankles, those hamstrings. And then finding that stillness, and we're going to start with those hands. Press those fingertips into the palm, into the mat. Okay, pulling those forearms towards each other. So thinking about the elbow creases, we're kind of pointing towards each other. And then we're going to press that tailbone up towards the sky, pressing that belly towards those thighs. Okay, so we want that really flat back. So you can bend those knees a little bit more to help get that flat back. And then start to press through those heels. Now, I don't want you to, let's see if I can even do it, round through that spine to get those heels down. Keep the integrity of the spine the exact same, okay? They just cued. The only thing that really changes is just kind of that action of pressing through those heels. There may not be a whole lot of physical change in the posture itself, but you should feel it a little bit more along the backs of the legs. So 1 more breath. And now we're going to step that right foot through to that right thumb. Okay, if you step and it's here, just go ahead and grab onto it. Pull that foot forward a little bit more. Okay, lower that back knee down. We're going to reach those arms up overhead. So to start this, sit your hips back so the hips are stacked right over the knee. You pull that rib cage down, that tailbone down. Okay, really tight through that core. Then we're going to press that hip forward. Okay, so nothing is really changing in that low back. So try and get that knee now to stack over that ankle. You'll feel that big stretch through that back hip flexor. Now reach those arms up overhead. Now with this front leg, press into this heel and pull back. So you'll start to feel this hamstring and this glute kind of fire a little bit more. Okay, same idea with the back knee. It's going to press down, pull forward. Okay, so really stabilizing through those hips. So we're finding that mobility, but also kind of building that strength in that position. So maybe you press the hips forward a little bit more. Stay really active in that front foot and that back knee. Now we're going to twist. Left arm is going to reach forward. Right arm reaches back. Make that T. Then we're going to flip that left paw and then reach that right hand down towards that hamstring as you reach up and back. So maybe even looking over that shoulder. And then reach those arms back up. Pause it here. And now lower the hands down, straighten that front leg. So now stretching that hamstring, lifting through that chest. If you want to bring those hands onto the blocks, you can. And now as we rebend into this knee, we're going to kind of bring that foot towards that right edge of the mat. So I want space for your hands and your shoulders inside that knee. You can turn that toe out a few degrees. You can even let that knee open up a little bit more. So if the knee opens up, it kind of transfers a little bit more stretch into the outer hip. So whatever you feel like you need. So pause it here for a breath or two, just on your hands. Kind of let the hips open up a little bit. Now with that front foot, it's going to be that same idea. Press that foot down into the mat and then pull back. So we feel like we're flexing through these hamstrings, maybe even that inner thigh. And now when I say pull that hip back, think about just going towards the midline. You don't want to overdo it so you're rolling off to that side. We want those hips to be nice and level. Okay, now if you're ready, you can start to bend into those elbows, lowering onto those forearms. If the ground's a little bit farther away, grab onto that block. If you guys can see this. And then just lower your forearms down to the block. So just a little bit more elevated. It's early, so don't feel like you gotta force those elbows down towards the ground. Just let it happen gradually. Sometimes, not sometimes, almost all the time. Body is a little bit tighter in the morning, so maybe you can do this in the afternoon, but this morning it's not happening. That's fine. Okay, grab that block, make those adjustments. Stay with that breath. Slowly come back up onto those hands. Stepping that leg back to our downward facing dog. Just take a few breaths, pedal those feet out. Maybe a little blood flow back to that right leg. If you even want to draw circles with that knee, that's fine too, or extending through the hip. And then we'll go to that other side, stepping that left foot through. So to start, bring that foot towards the left thumb, back knee lowers down. Very good, so we'll set the position up first. So as we rise up, start with the hips stacked over that back knee. And then this front knee is behind that left ankle. Okay, rib cage down, tailbone down. First, start to just press those hips forward. So start to feel that stretch through this right hip flexor. Okay, keeping everything nice and tight. Reach those arms up overhead. Gotta tap front knee a little more. And now start to engage those muscles. So we'll press into that left heel, press down, pull back. So you start to feel this hamstring and glute flex. Okay, right knee is gonna press down and it's gonna pull forward. So notice I'm not really moving, it's just kind of tightening up and firing those muscles. Let's just stay here, breathe. Maybe you can press those hips forward a little bit more. You know, find that twist. So that right hand is gonna reach forward, left arm's gonna reach back into that twist. Maybe you look back and you can find that left hand. Now we'll flip that right palm, reach it up towards the ceiling as this left hand reaches for that hamstring. Okay, maybe looking over that shoulder, finding that back heel. Stay really tight and strong through those legs, those hips, that core. And then we'll reach those arms back up. One more breath. And then we'll lower those hands down, pulling the toes back. Lifting through that chest as much as you can. Keep that nice flat back. It's okay if those hands are even resting on that knee. Maybe fold it forward a little bit more. We'll bend into that knee. Bring that foot a little bit wider so you have room for your hands and your shoulders. Okay, pressing the hips forward. Now you can stay here. Here you can start to lower down onto those elbows. So again, remember with that feet, when I press that left heel down, pull back, feel that hamstring, maybe even that glute. Start to fire. Pressing that right knee into the ground, pulling it forward. And then you can start, if you haven't already, lowering those elbows down. So maybe all the way to the ground, maybe onto that block. This side might feel different. So just adjust as needed. Just a couple more breaths. Make your way onto those hands, sending that foot back to that downward facing dog. And any movements that you need, maybe those circles, maybe we extend and open up the hip. And one more breath in down dog. Good. Now from here, we'll just lower those knees down. Bring those knees as wide as you can. So you might even turn so you're on the long edge of your mat this way. Okay, so bring those knees really, really wide. We're gonna do a big stretch through that inner thigh. So let's go. It's gonna be more of like a tadpole, not so much a frog. So the toes can be angling in. They don't have to be touching. Okay, and then just sit those hips back as far as you can. And then you can lower down onto your forearms, maybe all the way down onto the head. Now, if you're familiar with that frog pose and you feel like you need that or want that, you can extend those feet out so the toes are pointing in opposite directions. Abs are tight, low back is flat, and then press those hips back as far as you can. Just stay with that breath. Just a few more breaths. Maybe press those hips back a little bit further. And then we'll slowly come out of that. Any way that you can. No right or wrong way. And then just make your way onto your back. So start with those knees bent. Okay. Plant those feet down, pressing into those heels, gripping those toes. We're gonna roll those hips up. So just start by lifting the tailbone up. We'll roll up one vertebrae at a time. Big extension through those hip flexors. Pressing into those feet. Think about rotating that tailbone up towards the ceiling, pulling that rib cage down, abs are tight. So we're trying to flatten out this low back as much as we can. And slowly roll those hips down. Bring those arms out to that T. Just drop the knees over to the right. So the feet can stay right where they're at. Just roll over onto the sides of the feet. Bring it to center. Bring the knees over to the left. And center. Let's go 2 more times. To the right. Center. To the left. And center to the right. Center to the left. And center. Now hug those knees in. Roll it forward and back. We're going to come up to that seat. So if you want to finish this off in that butterfly like we started, you can. Or if you want to go into cross-legged, that's fine too. Just rest those hands on the knees. Sitting tall, closing down those eyes. And just taking a few more breaths, just letting yourself be in the space. Just trying to focus on that breath, only that breath, for as long as you can. And if the mind starts to wander, which probably will, that's okay. Just come right back to that breath and make that quiet space between thoughts as long as you can. Good. blinking those eyes open. Thank you guys so much for joining me this morning. I will see you all tomorrow at 4:45.